when I was beginning the ministry in Hayward, and I was going through those same changes. And I met a friend of mine named Ernie Morris from Philadelphia, pastors Mount Airy Church. And Ernie went from Germantown with a handful of folk to this mega church with thousands and thousands of members. I said, Ernie, what happened? He said, hey, man, I just changed my definition of church. And he told me, I said, man, I got that. He told me what he did. I went back to Hayward, man. I'm a quick, steady boy. I went back to Hayward, and I did my Canaan land march. I just started marking out every place my foot trod. I said, thank you very much. This is my church. And I turned around and made a new definition for what church looked like. And then I had to take in my members. You see, you cannot have members if you haven't given them the right hand of fellowship. And I discovered that I don't have to wait for you to come to my church for me to give you the right hand of fellowship. I started shaking hands with everybody I talked to. And everybody's hand I shook, I was telling them, you were part of my church. Man, I took in alcoholics, drug addicts. I took in some folk that were definitely strange. I said, hi, my name is John Macklin. I'm Reverend Macklin, and I want you to know I'm your pastor. And you ain't my pastor. I said, yes, I am. They said, man, you ain't my pastor. I said, I'm your pastor. He said, I ain't even been to your church. I said, I'm still your pastor. You just my member that haven't been here yet. I don't hear nobody today. Pretty soon, people start calling me, hey, pastor. You see, our problem now, we don't want to be pastors. We want to be CEOs. We want to be the manager. We want to be the director of the nonprofit. But we can't find shepherds anyway. Am I in trouble here? We're having some serious problems. Let me suggest to you the following. If you look carefully at that text in Matthew 2, in Mark chapter 2, one of the things that you're going to discover is that this man that was left there, the Bible said he's left, but the house is filled. I just wonder how many of those people that went to the house to see Jesus pass the man. I got a feeling a whole bunch of folk passed to see him. We going to where Jesus is. And they left the man right where he was. But there were 4 friends. And this brings me to my close. And every great coaching preacher got to close sometimes. But listen, let's bring me to my close. If you look at that text carefully, you will discover that that man that was there, his name is never mentioned. We don't know whether his name was Leroy or not. The 4 people that helped him, their names are never mentioned. Their occupations are never mentioned. Their titles are never mentioned. Their financial wealth is never given. This poor man would have been left outside if friends had not surrounded him. As a result of that, we come to this conclusion. Those 4 people saw a divine opportunity. They understood that if something's going to happen in this man's life, we have to take him to where the happenings can take place. And when they got there and found out that it was like that, they also discovered that the house was full. Well, I guess we got to take him on back. No, sir, we're not leaving until our friend can walk. Now, what does that mean? That now means I've got to move from my divine call to my creative faith. Creative faith causes me to see things that are not as if they were. Creative faith causes me to believe that the God that I serve is able to do anything but fail. And that means that even though I can't find it in my church manual, don't mean that it's not possible. Just because we've never done it before doesn't mean we can't do it now. Somebody said, you don't understand, Bishop Macklin. I'm surrounded by trouble. We just surrounded by all of this negative stuff. Let me tell you today, you're only surrounded if you choose to stay where you are.
I think what we're trying to do is get churches to network together and understand that this is larger than one congregation. We're working with this critical mass idea, the idea of churches taking on a turf, taking on a neighborhood, taking on several blocks that they can claim as their own, and then ministering to that on a regular basis. Trying to get churches to be more high profile, all right, posting of signs, etc. To be able to bring that to a point that people can see that. And then to involve themselves in certain responses as well as creative ministries, and then advertise those together. So rather than one church taking out a little quarter, a little piece of an ad in the paper said we do after school, whatever, list all of those together at one time. And so when people look at that, you get the full impact of what the church is doing in terms of the outreach to a city. So rather than it appearing that it's just one church trying to do one or two things, when we put it together, you've got 70, 100 churches doing all kinds of things. And you put it together, that's the body of Christ. And this is our response. We need to pull together in that kind of format, that it's going to have a greater appeal, it's going to have a greater balance, and it's going to have a greater impact. And that's really where we are right now. And I'm trying to set a new standard for that, so that guys begin to understand that the church is larger than you. All right, it's larger than your building, it's larger than your parking lot. And so that's really what we're trying to do. And that's our focus. We're hoping to bring a conference very similar to this one to Richmond a little bit later on this year, probably in September, October, and so people will be hearing about that within a few days. And sponsored by the Presiding Bishops Initiatives. But we're actually reaching out to everybody to do our best to prepare people for that, so that we can move this model forward. But I think what's happening here today at PICO, the conference here, is good. Very, very positive. So that's why I agreed to come.